If you've ever learned Unity on YouTube, there's a good chance today's guest helped you along the way. CodeMonkey is one of the biggest Unity educators on the platform, with hundreds of tutorials and courses that have helped countless developers get started. Alongside all of that, he's also released a whole range of commercial games on Steam, which makes him the perfect person to talk to about the balancing act between creating games and creating content. I'm sure you'll learn a thing or two in today's episode as we discuss how Hugo got started making games in Flash before eventually learning Unity and releasing games on Steam, including porting one of his Flash games to C#, which became one of his earliest successes. Of course, we also talk about his journey into YouTube and how he became one of the most trusted educators for beginner Unity developers. We also discuss our different approaches to making small games versus more ambitious projects, and the economic realities that come with each. And as both educators on YouTube, we explore the constant balancing act between spending months building games or consistently releasing educational content, because with limited time and attention, focusing on one often comes at the expense of the other. Hugo is one of my favourite people to talk to about these kind of topics because he has such a logical and thoughtful approach to game development. He's incredibly insightful when it comes to setting realistic goals, especially if your main aim is to make games for a living as an independent developer. So let's go ahead and get started talking to CodeMonkey about game dev. Yeah, so I guess we can just jump into talking about like you getting started in this space. Your first game was in 2013, right?
That was my first Steam game, yeah. But
okay.
Before that, already made tons of games. I mean, technically, well, I guess it depends on what you consider a game. Technically, when I started programming when I was like 10 years old. So yeah, that was many years ago. And of course, when I started programming, I immediately thought, hey, why don't I try making some games? So yeah, I started programming was by writing IRC scripts, which most people nowadays don't even know what it is. But yeah, basically just just text-based stuff. So yeah, basically making some very simple trivia games, hangman games, all just with text. So yeah, back then I started doing that. But when I started making some more proper things, some things that you would actually call games, was more when I found Flash, which was in 2008. And yeah, then made a ton of Flash games for like 5 years. I made like 40 Flash games. That was a ton. That was a really great learning experience for me. Yeah, it was a very because Flash games back then, they were basically like prototypes. So every week I was trying out a brand new idea. So when it comes to learning, that helped me out quite a lot. So I learned a lot on that. And yeah, then in 2013, that's when I first discovered Unity. And I decided, okay, I want to make a Steam game. So yeah, started learning about Unity, started making Steam games, and then started making some more proper PC games. But so yeah, it's actually been quite a long time. I mean, it's always crazy when I think to myself, oh, wow, I've been doing this with Unity for like 12, 13 years, and
Right.
in general for like 20 years. Time flies quite a bit.
So your first few were in Unity, but it looked like, I mean, your art was from Flash. Then I'm going to guess that you were using Flash as your like vector art package.
Sort of. I don't remember if I was like using directly from Flash, but yeah, basically, I think maybe I wasn't, just because back then Unity did not support SVGs, no vector art at all. So I'm pretty sure what I was doing was like drawing it in Flash, then taking a picture, putting it on Photoshop,
yeah, right.
and just making sprites. So yeah, that's why some of my games, yeah, they do have very much that specific style.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about your like DX Tycoon. Is that that
Game Corp DX? Yeah,
Game Corp DX. That's it. Yes. That's very like a Flash game to me.
Oh yeah, I mean that was literally a Flash game. The
right.
First version
so
of it
ported it.
Was exactly. The first version was just called Game Corp, and I launched it in like 2011, I think. And then when I went on to Steam, I figured, okay, it would be a nice, fun project. Basically, try remaking this, and so that it doesn't have all the limitations of Flash, so that it's actually 60 FPS, full resolution, and so on. I thought that was fun. So yeah, I made that, basically that remake, because of course it had to be completely redone.
Action script to C#, right?
Yeah. So I had to literally convert everything. But yeah, it was a very nice project, because back then I was able to focus just on the technical side as opposed to like the game design. I mean, the game design was already done. I basically just used the exact same thing on the Flash game. So it was a really great experience for learning more about Unity, because yeah, design is done. Let's just convert this step by step. And the final result was actually quite nice. It's still one of my, I think it is my most successful game of all time. So yeah, that actually went out quite nicely. People enjoyed it. So yeah, that was a very interesting project.
So, and you've spoken about this. You then made a sequel to your first game, like your first Steam game.
Yeah.
After that, which you said didn't do too well. But my question for you then is like, especially given the, as we know that the genre of like Game Corp is still doing well. So
oh yeah.
Is there a sequel on the horizon for that game? Like, have you ever considered that?
uh, I don't know. I mean, never say never, but I don't know. Honestly, if I had time to like make a sequel to one of my games, I think I would make a sequel to like Survivor Squad, like make a Survivor Squad 3, just because
Okay.
even nowadays I still really enjoy the core mechanic of that game. The thing, it's all about like line of sight. You can only see in front of you, so you have to position your units very carefully. I still really think that mechanic is really nice. And of course, that first game is quite janky. I mean, the reviews are mixed, and rightfully so. Definitely, it was my first attempt at doing something, so quite a lot of things were unpolished, very janky. So with the skills that I have nowadays, it would definitely be interesting trying to make a sequel to that. So trying to really give that interesting mechanic a very proper game. So yeah, if I had time, I would love to do that. Yeah.
That also then leads me into, because your channel is very programming focused. You know, you are the code monkey.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, are you a designer who makes games, or are you a programmer who designs games? Because I'm a designer who programs games, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I consider programming the tool that lets me do my job, but the thing I
Right.
love
Yeah.
is the game ideas and design, and just really thinking about,
Yeah.
and I mean tooling as well. Like I consider myself a tools designer at the same, to
Sure.
make that process easier. I'm just curious, like, where on the fence do you sit, you know?
Oh, for me, 100% programmer. I mean, I definitely would not consider myself a good game designer. I mean, the design is definitely the weakest part of my games. I really just enjoy building systems. That's mostly it, which is why my games are very much strategy focused, management focused, things that are very much heavy on the programming side, because, yeah, that is definitely the part that I enjoy. I mean, uh, trying to design systems, trying to design compelling things for the player to do to encourage them to work in a certain way. Yeah, that is not really the, the thing that I most enjoy. So for me, the more code heavy it is, the better it is. But at the same time, I do enjoy. I enjoy the combination of code plus visual things. So I don't think I would necessarily enjoy too much like just, I don't know, like software development where it's just 100% code, no visuals, nothing at all. I think that would be way too much. So even though I'm very much a programmer mainly, I still do enjoy combining the programming side with something kind of visual. But yeah, definitely focus quite a lot more heavily on the programming side.
Do you think about that from a programming standpoint first, and how easy a game idea might be to program, or do you think about the design as what to you, what is the North Star for your game ideas, I guess, because they can go either way, right?
Right, yeah. I think for me, it always starts with more gameplay. That's always been my thing. Even as a game player, I always value gameplay a lot more than just like visual style narrative. Those are always nice things, but for me, usually gameplay comes first. So for that, when I think about a game, usually starts by thinking, okay, what would be an interesting mechanic? What would be an interesting interaction that I can make in a game? Something that is interactive. That's the whole point of games. So yeah, usually it starts with that. Then try to think, okay, how can I what design can I apply to this kind of thing? So yeah, on that one, I basically thought, okay, it's really cool to move like units around. I really enjoyed like RTS games. That was always something that I really enjoyed. So I figured, okay, I want to start with that, with the mechanics of controlling multiple units. Now, what can I do more with this? Then I figured, okay, what about a nice line of sight mechanic? Okay, that sounds cool. And then I had to think, okay, how do I what is the visual theme on top of this? Then I started thinking, making a SWAT game. Okay, that was a bit too complex, a bit too much AI. Then I figured, okay, why not a zombie game? Those have like easier AI, something that I can build. And yeah, basically it goes from that. But it all definitely starts very much more mechanics focus, programming, that sort of thing. And only then basically try to figure out the design to basically as an excuse to make that programming side actually come to life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're thinking scope first, and then you scope down based on the concept of what you think is going to be the easiest to implement.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
or most interesting to implement.
Yeah, most interesting, but yeah, definitely, especially at that time, like 10 years ago when I was making that game, where I was definitely not as skilled as I am nowadays. So yeah, there were quite a lot of things that I would have loved to do, but I was unable to do. So it was also about trying to analyze my own skills, where I currently stand, and trying to figure out what are some ideas that I can do, what are things that I can't do, and yeah, basically trying to figure out that.
And did you spend time sort of always trying to reach a little bit further than you can do to learn new things while you're on that project, or did that just sort of happen naturally, would you say?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's more naturally, so I don't necessarily I always try to think, okay, what would be interesting here? And then I try to build it. And yeah, only a handful of times do I try to build it and all of a sudden I can't. Most times, if it's something even like 10 years ago, when again I was less skilled, when I was trying to do something and I couldn't do it, I would always like sort of try to find a different route to sort of achieve a similar thing. So maybe not the same thing, but sort of similar. So yeah, I guess I naturally always try to push myself to the limit. I never have to quite focus on that because I have plenty of ideas, plenty of things that I want to do. So I always think, oh, add this, to this, until eventually the thing that I want to add is kind of pushing beyond my edge of knowledge. And then I have to learn a little bit more. So yeah, I guess that's always been natural.
And would you cut things either because you couldn't quite achieve it, or would you scale stuff down? Like from a just from the because from the programming standpoint, you could just keep going forever, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to touch on where your design ethos comes in. As you say, you're focusing on systems and mechanics first, because if you it's super easy to just continually try to build mechanic, but that becomes this just like nightmare Ouroboros that eats itself, right? So I guess the question is like, at what point for you do you say, okay, that's enough, or I've gone too far, I need to remove some things? Okay. Now, is that like a player, like a game feel thing for you, or is there a sort of hard rule that you kind of like to live by?
In that specific game, there was a like the game is like with zombies. So like start with a bunch of survivors and there are a bunch of zombies coming and you have to survive. But it did not start that way. It actually started with my original idea ended up being way too ambitious for my current skill set. And that is why I had to actually change it. Because initially my idea was actually to make a SWAT game. Because I always enjoyed the SWAT PC games. Those were always so cool. Like breaching some kind of door, then going inside, throwing a flashbang. Always love that. I love those games. So my idea was, why don't I make like a top-down 2D SWAT game? That was my idea. And that is how I started. And as soon as I started trying to do like that complex AI to like have a bunch of units all loading up to a door, then one of them opens the door, another one throws a flashbang, another one goes inside. All of that was very complex AI that at the time I was just not capable of doing. So I tried doing that. I tried doing exactly the idea that I had in my head for, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a few months, until I realized, okay, sadly, I'm just not as skilled to be able to build the idea that I have in my head, so I have to switch something. I still really like the top-down, controlling the unit sort of thing, so how can I sort of minimize the scope to something that would be achievable by me? And that's when I figured out, okay, why not zombies? I mean, zombies, they have very easy AI, so if AI is my big problem, if I just make zombies, they just move towards you, then the soldiers, they just stand still, aim here, so yeah, that became quite a bit easier. So that is a very practical example of how I thought of an idea that was way beyond my skill set, and then eventually had to scale it back down little by little until I figured out something that I was actually able to build.
That's awesome. I think that's such a good example. How about in your more recent work though? Like, because I think you look at something like Dinky Guardians, and it's I think bigger in scope, I would say. But that game again probably could have ballooned had you. I think you did devlog about this a little bit when you were talking about it during development. But I'm just curious if there's anything in there that started to balloon and you sort of pulled that back too.
I think nowadays, thankfully, you're never experienced enough where scope is never a problem. Yeah. No, that is always always a problem. You always want to do too much. So that never goes away. But thankfully, I think I'm quite a bit better nowadays that I think I can easily see, okay, this mechanic would be really cool, but no, that is going way too much. So let's actually pull it back before I start to invest a ton of time into it. So thankfully, on my last project, I was able to honestly pretty much stand by my original scope pretty well. I don't think I went way overboard. So again, that definitely comes with experience. It only happened that way because after making games for over a decade. So that is probably the biggest reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gain that experience. I guess another question probably would be like, your scope for the game, what do you use to define that? Because I think from what I hear, probably your ability to understand what the scope is, right, would then allow you to make that call. So I think if people are less familiar with this, how would you say you come up with a scope? Because for me, I have sort of pillars of like, for Cabs of Chaos, for instance, I have sort of 3 pillars for the game. It's like chaotic and fun, sort of Saturday morning cartoon, and race it, like a racing driving game, like just good feeling driving, sort of arcadey driving thing. And so if it doesn't fit those pillars, it is out of scope of the game.
Okay.
So I'm curious if you have anything like that helps you define your scope, so you can sort of check back on it to determine this goes out of scope, or is it just kind of a vibes thing for you?
For me, I think it's more sort of a vibe thing, but when it comes to game design, that is really something that I've learned is very, very personal. Everybody makes games in different ways, and every single way is valid. I mean, if you just go watch a bunch of GDC talks, you'll see everybody says, I designed the game this way, this way, this way, and they all end up with
so
games
contradictory.
In the end. So yeah, everything, when it comes to design, basically anything can work. So yeah, try out what works for you and then figure it out. For me, I've heard the pillars approach and I've tried that, and I don't know, it always seemed to be way too rigid, so I never quite enjoy that too much. So for me, yeah, it's more like usually my design documents is literally just a piece of paper. I just write down from top to bottom just a general rough feeling on what I want the game to be, what are the main mechanics, and then just go through them. And of course, again, I already have quite a bit of experience, so I can look at that page and I can try to guess, okay, so this list of mechanics is going to take me 6 months to build, so I know, okay, I can't really add way too much stuff on top of it. I'll just add a little bit. So scope management is definitely very important. And yeah, I think everybody makes games in different ways. So my advice would be try to figure out what works for you, experiment with lots of games. That is also why making small games is always a great thing, because you can make a game, experiment with like the pillars format, make another game with more free form, another game with a very strict game design document, and then try to see which one of those approaches works best. Because yeah, anything can work, so it's really all about figuring out what works for you specifically.
Yeah, you talk about the small games thing. We can touch on that because I think you and I both have I think you have a strong push for make small games, whereas I'm very much in a. There is actually for me there's a plus to making something that you work on for a long time. Like I worked on my business game, like Living the Deal. I never shipped it. I canceled it because I was then employed at Sonderlust to work on a similar, another business management games, or like a not business, a management game, right? So I just didn't want to have to try and hold those. But all of the skills that I worked on, because it was such a big game for me, to some degree, I was making lots of little games and systems. And so, I think that's the one bit where I'm like, there is actually, to me, there's also a plus to working on larger games too, from just a personal level. But obviously, it's an uphill struggle. I would never recommend anybody like from the very get-go do that. But, my first game, RPG Tycoon, also was kind of, that was more just me just kind of throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks in some way. But I was learning kind of trial by fire. And I guess my question to you really was that, have you seen that your scope and growth of games has gotten bigger as you've got more experience? Because I guess that's the one thing that I would say is that, like, yes, there's absolutely, beginners, you need the small game thing just to learn how to do it. I was doing lots of prototyping and, I would consider the prototyping phase also a small game aspect. And so I'm wondering just, what is that space for you? And how has that evolved for you over the years?
I think when it comes to scale, I think the most important thing is defining what exactly are you trying to get out of this game. Is it just education? If so, then yeah, working on a game for like 2 years and just building a ton of systems and trying to put them all together, that can actually work out nicely.
Yeah.
But if your game is trying to make games for a living, eventually make a game that actually sustains you, then yeah, spending 2 years working on a game is going to make it very difficult for that game to turn any sort of profit. So the first thing starts with that, starts with defining for yourself what exactly is the goal. Both goals are perfectly fine. Both goals are perfectly achievable, viable, doable. So yeah, it's very much about having clarity on yourself on which of the goals are you trying to do. And then when it comes to scope, that is also a question that I get every single time whenever I encourage people to make small games, which is what exactly is a small game? And for me, I like to define a game in terms of time. So like small game, I would consider anything within like 6 months, maybe even up to a year if you're already an experienced developer. But yeah, more than 1 year, I would definitely not consider that a small game. But 6 months, usually that's the best thing. So then, of course, then people, after that, they tell me, oh, in 6 months, I can only build something like a Flappy Bird. So do I just have to make those kinds of games? And the answer is no, because as your skills improve, the amount of stuff that you can build in just those 6 months keeps growing and growing once the time frame stays exactly the same. Which is a great example for like my last game, The Guardians. It's a very complex game. It's an automation management game. It's got colony survival, defense, and so on. It has an insane amount of mechanics that if I were to make that game 10 years ago when I was more of a beginner, it would have probably taken me like 2 to 3 years to build that game. But nowadays, with my skill, with my experience, nowadays I can actually build a game with the exact same scope. But now, since I'm quite a bit more skilled, that same scope can be built in 6 months as opposed to like 3 years. So that is why I always encourage people to make small games, because even if you want to make bigger games, all you really just need to do is just become more skilled. And as you become more skilled, the things that you can do in that same time frame just continues increasing and increasing. So that is why I'm a big fan of try to keep the the time frame as limited as possible. And if you just want to make more complex games, then really just improve your own skills so you can cram more of that sort of complexity in the same time frame.
Do you not think that there is a critical mass to that though? Because I think I could see. I mean, I agree with you on many of those points for sure. Definitely, I can make things faster, quicker, easier. You know, trying to make cabs 10 years ago for me would never have happened, right? So I fully agree with that. And with the speed at which I can do so many things now has changed. But I do think there is a critical mass at which, like, okay, I want to get these things in the game for it to be complete. Like that's my idea for the package of the scope of the game. That's going to take, this amount of thing takes this amount of time to make, right? So for how long it takes to make a character or a level or a, whatever that scales to be, right?
Yeah.
Times the amount that you need in the game. Let's say you need 10 levels. That is a fixed amount of time. And some of that stuff can't change. At some point you've hit the limit on how long it takes you to do something. So would you say not to do it then, or to scope the game back significantly? Because there could also be an argument that the scaled back version of that game is worse off for not having the depth of the content that exists.
I mean, you can, but again, that goes back to what is your original goal? If your goal is to make games for a living, then you always have to keep in mind how more time equals more cost, which equals quite a bit more difficult to make that game turn a profit. So if that's your goal, then you have to constantly keep that in mind. So if you do think that with an extra 6 months of development, the game will go from being like a 5 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10, then yeah, maybe that might be worthwhile. But just keep in mind, that is not free. It has some kind of cost. So it's up to you to analyze your cost. Okay, spending 6 more months on this game, will that very real, very fixed cost will actually yield better results than not? And that is very much a personal thing. I mean, like I said, I really enjoy making more mechanics-heavy games, programming-heavy games that are not necessarily content-heavy games. So that is why, for me personally, for the games that I like to make, my skills as a programmer greatly impact the scope. Whereas if I was trying to make something more narrative, something like that, then yeah, it has quite a lot more fixed costs that even if you are 10 times better as a writer, artist, and so on, yeah, some things just take time. So it also depends on what kind of genres you're going for.
No, I agree. I think it's important to, because I think, there's a sustainability aspect to it, right? But there's also something that makes you happy. Right, like if working on that 2-year thing is also going to keep you content and make you enjoy making the game, right? And I was talking to Luke in the previous video, and he said that for him it was a sweet spot of like 18 months and just trying to have more shots on goal. Right, I've just come off of a 5-year thing. I don't want to work on a game for 5 years ever again.
That's too long.
It's too long. I could have. I think to me in my space, I think I want to work on stuff once every sort of year and a half. I'd love to be able to be putting something out, because I think the more shots on goal aspect of it makes sense. But it is, it's turbulent times now specifically.
So let me ask you, so why not 6 months? Because in theory, in a year and a half, if you make 6 months games, you have 3 shots on goal as opposed to just 1. So when do you define that time scale? What do you define as what's best for you?
That's a great question. For me, it's about achieving the design of the game that I want to make to a scope that I think creates enough content and time played for the experience that I want to curate, right? So, and that's going to change. But for cabs, for instance, I've thought about this. I was going to potentially release the game with 1 level, 5 characters, and that was going to just be it. And this was going to depend on how it was going to be received at an event that I went to a few weeks ago.
Right.
In that, like, if it was kind of not being received super well, then I can just get it out. That's my shot on goal, move on, start the next thing, right? Whereas right now it's like, okay, well, actually, if I scope it up a little bit, work until it start of next year, maybe get 15 characters in, 3 levels, more game modes. That's a deeper experience for the player. It potentially creates, especially for a game like that is needs some replayability, and I can build scope for a meta to get people that play on their own, and because it's like an addressable market thing too, right? I think if I can make it a deeper game, then it'll have a little bit more of an appeal to both the single player who maybe doesn't want to play with friends, and they can just play it on their own against the AI, but like the computer CPU. I was gonna that word is tainted now, so we're using computer opponents or CPU players. The programmed computer opponents that I've built into the game versus friends and stuff too, because it could very much easily just be a game that I powered like, oh, you have to have friends to play this, right? but the addressable
Yeah,
market goes down significantly at that point.
definitely. Yeah.
Versus a bigger scope that can be played single player. For me, it's single player, multiplayer, or a combination of both. And I just think that the game needs that for it to like exist. And maybe it's just a egotistical thing, but like I think
Yeah, that's always a problem.
I think to me there's always just like a there's like an MVP, there's like a gold star, $1 million budget thing, and then there's
something in the middle, right?
Games are scalable to that sense of scope. But I think I've landed on like this feels to me like what the game deserves to get a true shot. Like, because you can make a million shots on goal, but if you're shooting to the left of the goal or to the right,
right?
Of the
Yeah,
goal,
of course. Yeah,
you're not. So I guess that's part of it too, is me trying to figure out what gives it more of a chance to hit, and
right.
that to me, I think a version of this that I made in 6, that is just the first level, the 4 or 5 characters that I originally made. If I ship that, I don't think it has a high chance of. I mean, maybe if I sell it for $5 or something, sure. But even then, that's still no guarantee. And at that point, the ROI in terms of you need to have much higher volume of sales to sort of see anything really. From
it is. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I land on that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I guess you have to analyze. Do you think the extra 6 months are really going to add that much to the game? If so, then yeah, maybe that's. I mean, especially since you said that you went for playtesting. If the playtest is positive, if the feedback is positive, that is also another thing where I'm okay with people spending longer on their games if they have validation that people do want like this game idea. So like recently, just a game came out called Tabletop Tavern, which is from someone who. I'm always super happy to hear when people learn something from my course and then they make a game and the game is super successful. That is awesome. So yeah, that developer followed my DOTS course like 2 years ago and then started working on the game. And then the game started actually getting quite a nice amount of wishlists. And he figured, okay, I'm going to work on it a little bit more since he already has basically that demand validated. So if that's the case, I don't mind working on a game for longer. Mm-hmm. If you have already validated, okay, clearly there are people that want this game. So the discoverability part of that equation that is basically solved because I already have those wish lists. So now the potential of the game is going to be 100% dependent on the quality. So in that sense, it does make sense to spend quite a bit more time. But if you don't have that kind of validation through either playtests or wish lists, then yeah, it becomes, like you were saying, it's a little bit, it can become a problem of being more like ego talking about, oh, I think I can make the game quite a bit better. Are you really saying that? Or are you really just having an excuse for yourself, which then might actually not yield some good results? So yeah, it's always thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, do you have the same thing? And maybe this is just from the types of games that I'm used to making. But there's 2 things really. There's like systems complete, and then there's like content complete, right? And those are 2 separate pieces. And I would argue that like I try to get a game to systems complete as fast as possible, and then content complete can scale a lot more.
Oh yeah.
But having the flexibility to do that, because then you can invent new content that can build on systems and become more modular in that way, right? And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm looking at making more games. I've got a few ideas for after cabs, but part of this is also like just a palate cleanser thing too.
Right.
But we'll see. Right now, I'm just enjoying the freedom of like.
Okay, sure, yeah, that sounds great. That's a good reason.
Yeah, but for you, I guess then the question is: would you ever make a game that takes you longer than 6 months to make?
I mean, previously in the past, I did do that back when because Steam obviously changes quite a lot. So the Steam nowadays is very different from Steam like 10 years ago. So yeah, I think the most that I spent on a game was probably. I think it was like Battle Royale Tycoon, which was like 18 months. So like, I guess a year and a half. Yeah. So yeah, I have spent quite a bit more, but again, that was a different Steam. Whereas nowadays, I think Steam is quite a bit more, I don't know how to say it, like more fast paced. So like the quality of ideas nowadays matters quite a lot more as opposed to just the execution. Just good execution was enough 10 years ago. Nowadays, I don't think that's enough. Nowadays, you need good execution with a really excellent idea, really nice hook. I think that is nowadays the most important thing for finding success. And again, basically with smaller games, you can basically experiment with more different hooks until you find something that does work. Whereas if you're spending a year and a half on something, then if it doesn't work, that is quite painful. That does so quite badly, which I have suffered that. I have worked on a game like my second game, Survivor Squad Gauntlets, which is a sequel to my first game, which did decently well. So I was confident, okay, the next game is going to do well. So I worked on that one. I don't even know. It was more than 1 year. and then I launched it and got like 1/10 the sales of the previous game. Oh boy, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. That was not a fun time. So yeah, I very much would not want to suffer through that again. So yeah, the more you spend time working on the game, the more intense, more stressful is the release going to be. So yeah, and if it doesn't go well, it can be very, very painful. So yeah, I would like to avoid that sort of pain. So I don't think I would spend over 1 year working on something. Again, like I said, unless if I work on something for like 6 months, I make a prototype, I make a video, and people really like it, I make the Steam page and gets like 20K wish list, then okay, yeah, sure. I think with that, I can spend like 1 year and a half working on that game. But without that validation, no, I don't think I would do that.
I mean, like another aspect for me is that a lot of the work I do on my games turn into YouTube videos, right? They turn into tutorials. So an ROI in that sense is like completely different metric. And I know this isn't going to appeal to everybody or like be the same thing for everyone. Although devlogs can be a big indicator of like how interested people are in your game. But for you, I think you match this with me in that like there is an additional benefit to working on stuff that you can not only in just learning new systems and maybe turning those into unique tutorials or tutorials that are inspired by systems that you're working on for your game, or topics for videos or whatever.
Yeah, that can definitely impact the calculation for that. Do you spend more time, which you're spending more time on the game, but you're also using that as an excuse to make more videos, so you're kind of benefiting from this while spending more time. So yeah, that can also help with the calculation.
Like, to be like, that's exactly how my YouTube channel was founded. When I was working on the deal on my base game, like all of the videos I'd made were just like, here, I learned how to do this thing on the game that I was working on. Here's a video, you know?
Yeah, nice.
So, okay, well, so let's talk about your YouTube a little bit more. How did you balance those two? Like, which one? The games came first, right? And then you started the YouTube channel, I suppose.
Yeah. I started making games in like 2012, 2013, and started YouTube in like 2018. And it only started becoming more of my main thing in like 2020. So yeah, but combining those two is basically impossible. That is my problem. I mean, there's always a billion things that I want to do. Of course, I would love to be working on a game right now, but how on earth can I combine working on a game, making videos, answering questions, comments, all kinds of things? It's just impossible. I've tried it every single way.
I'm trying to figure it out. Like I'm trying it, and we'll see.
I mean, if you find it, let me know what is the solution, because I've tried and I can't figure it out. Oh boy, I really wish, but yeah, there's only 24 hours in the day, so yeah, that is why I've accepted that I basically have to split my life into like seasons. Yeah. So like right now I'm in a season making more educational content. Then in the future, hopefully I'll have a season where I'll work more on the game. And yeah, trying to go through those, because yeah, doing both at the same time, yeah, that's just impossible.
Yeah. I mean, so another question, especially on the YouTube side of it, you were talking about courses, and are you changing the way that you're teaching on YouTube or making things on YouTube? Like, you've also moved to being on camera more, but with AI on the surface of people being able to kind of just get an LLM to help them do probably some of the basic things that they would have previously watched a YouTube video for or looked up a small blog post. Like, is that affecting you in any way? Are you worried about it at all, or are you thinking about that at all in your future content?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that is something that I'm questioning myself, because I definitely do see an impact. I definitely do see views going down, not drastically, but definitely going on a downtrend. So I do have to assume that, I mean, it coincides with like the past 2 years. So I guess the one tricky thing is that also coincides with when Unity made that really dumb change. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say whether that downtrend is more related. What
would you be talking about there, Hugo? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
It's kind of hard to know what is the biggest aspect. Was it just that dumb change that pushed people off Unity, or is it AI? But yeah, either way, with those two combined, yeah, the whole thing going down a little bit. So as to what I do from that, honestly, I'm not quite sure. I enjoy making educational stuff, so I will continue making that. And yeah, I guess I always tell people that AI is actually really good as a learning tool. So you can basically ask it, because it is very expensive to like buy a personal tutor and have someone that you can chat with face to face. That is very expensive. But with AI, you can basically sort of have like 70% of that. You can basically talk to ChatGPT back and forth whenever you have some kind of questions. Whereas with a videos are really awesome, but it's basically passive. You're just listening to what the person, So if the tutorial is not teaching you the specific thing that you have, or if you have a follow-up question, that can be quite tricky. Whereas with AI, it does have that benefit. So I do think it's a generally great learning tool, but I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I would say the best thing of all is actually combining both, just because the biggest issue with AI is it is very good at giving you answers if you know what to ask for. But there are some things, especially when you are a beginner, you don't even know what to ask for. So if you go to an AI and you ask it, okay, explain to me how C# interfaces work. If you ask that, it will give you a very good answer. It will actually help you learn what they are. But if you're a beginner, you don't even know what is a C# interface. You will never know to ask that question. So that is why I do think there is still a room for like videos where someone guides you through the learning process. And then you can basically start with that and then learn a bunch of concepts that you can then go to the AI and go back and forth trying to understand that quite a bit more deeply.
So you're thinking about using your videos as a sort of launching off point then?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just as more of a, let's say, an aggregator of knowledge. So like you watch a video to learn things that you might not even know about, learn a bunch of different topics, and then you can go individually, go to the AI and try to get more detail on that one specific topic. Whereas if you just use the AI, again, I don't think how would you ask, teach me about C# interface if you don't know what those are? So yeah, I think you need to be exposed to that concept in some other way. And I think videos, courses, those kinds of things can be really great for that.
But is it changing? Is it going to change the way that you like things that you're making? Are you incorporating more of that in, or are you going to change some of the beginner stuff that you're working on to adapt to that at all?
I don't know. That's tricky because again, like I said, I've noticed views going down slightly, and I've tried many things to try to sort of reverse that trend. I haven't quite figured out what it is. So I'm not 100% sure in this AI age what people specifically want from like video tutorials or a course. So I'm constantly trying out new things that are more hands-on as opposed to just a straight up passive video tutorial. I've been trying out lots of different things, and I don't know, some things work, some things don't quite work. So I think that's just what I'm going to keep doing. Just continue experimenting with different formats, different things, try to see, okay, in this new age, how do people like to learn? I believe that people will continue wanting to learn, wanting to gain knowledge. And me personally, I will continue wanting to learn things myself and then teach them to people. So yeah, I guess I will just continue doing things and trying to figure out what are the formats that work in this brand new age. Yeah.
Is that part of why you also sort of moved to some more of the on-camera stuff as well then? Is just experimenting with new things because of the view changes?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily due to the view change. It's more like when I started my channel, I've always been a very painfully shy person. That's basically it. So when I started my channel, I was literally incapable of using a camera. So yeah, it was more, it was not necessarily a conscious choice. It was more of a personal limitation. So over time, I sort of got more comfortable with just microphone. So then I had the camera, then I did that. And of course, with the camera, then I can do more varied formats. So yeah, that also helps in, again, the same thing, experimenting with tons of stuff and trying to see what works.
Yeah, YouTube is a very, very personable format. Like I've found as I've started to do more on camera stuff, thumbnails where I just have my face in them, those videos are performing way better now than, and I would always put so much work into a thumbnail that was like, didn't have my face in it to try and make it look really pretty and clickable and stuff. But like, then I put something that I put a lot less work into, but it has my face in it and that does so much better. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, that is something that happens. But honestly, that's something that happens with everything. Like sometimes there are, like an entire game that you work on for work on a game for 1 year, then you work on a game that is meant to be something quick on like 2 months. Like that's like what happened with Peak. Massive game, sold millions and millions of copies. Like before that, they worked on what's it called, Agro Crab, something like that, a game about a crab, something like that. Yeah, they worked on that for like 2 years and it was very successful. But then they work on this, which is meant to be a quick side project on like 2 months. All of a sudden, it makes like 10 times the amount of money. So yeah, that is. The amount of effort that you put into something, whether it be a thumbnail, a video, a game, anything, it does not usually correlate very well to the output. So yeah, that is you have to live with that frustration of knowing, oh, I spent so much on this.
Does that not just completely destroy you when you think about it? Like, does it make you become somewhat nihilistic?
That is. It is frustrating sometimes working on a video for so long. Okay, I think this is great, doesn't do well. Yeah. Then I do a random video where I'm just talking about like some piece of news and gets like 10 times the amount of views. I just have to accept it. That's it.
I think I think the big thing, especially with YouTube, is they talk about the three pieces of content, right? Of just like having some hero content. I think it's I
Yeah,
can't like tutorial, not tutorial, but like help content or something.
yeah, they,
And then there's like the three categories. I can't fully remember what the middle one was, but and it's just having something there for people that for you and come back for you and like our regular
yeah,
viewers and want that big stuff versus people that are just sort of drive-by viewers.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
seems to be the drive-by stuff does tend to do quite well, but maybe you
yeah.
don't necessarily keep the sustainability of the channel. It's interesting. YouTube is a whole ecosystem that
Oh
like
yeah,
probably isn't super interesting to too many people listening, but I always love talking shop with other YouTubers
oh
because like
yeah.
it is an experience.
It is, and it's very difficult, and it's constantly changing. So yeah, I'm constantly always trying to learn about YouTube, trying to research what is
Yeah.
working nowadays, trying to apply it. But yeah, it is uh, definitely just as difficult as like making games, learning about Steam. Yeah, learning YouTube
And
is
we're doing both.
yeah. So yeah, that is quite difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, the Steam. How are you feeling about some of this new changes to Steam? So the calendar thing looks interesting, and people
Yes.
seem to be mixed on that. But to me, it seems like it's going to be making discoverability better for people in like types of games that they're
I
interested
mean,
in.
I hope so. Right now, it is
It's
still
too
too early
early.
to tell.
Yeah.
We still have to wait for some data to come in. But thankfully, the preliminary data that is coming out, that one does seem to be positive. So there have been some reports that say people launching games after that change, they actually had quite a bit more success. Now, of course, the question is that success just because it's a new thing? So lots of players are experimenting with a personal calendar. And over time, basically, those people will level out and it won't actually be as good, or will it actually stay this good for the long term? So yeah, I really hope that it's a positive change. So yeah, I guess we shall see. But definitely something big. I mean, previously you had the goal of like hit 7K wish lists, and that is like the bare bones for success. And nowadays you don't quite have that. Nowadays, in some cases, it's easier. Some cases you can
Yeah.
get on the calendar with like 2K wish lists. Other cases you need like 20K. So yeah, whether this is better or worse, yeah, it just needs to wait a little bit of time to get some more data. But yeah, I hope it's better. So yeah, I hope so.
What would you say you use as indicators for your games? Because I'm thinking about it in terms of playtesting, feedback, and just like wish lists coming off of those. You know, if I do a couple of devlogs, I'm planning on doing those now that I've got some more time, and just seeing how the spikes. Because even from the like announcement video I just made of leaving my job, that massively spiked my. I mean, I hadn't really announced the game at all on
Nice.
Steam, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
brought wishlist in, and
Yeah.
so using those as would you say using those as indicators is a good factor to determine like how long to continue working on something? What do you
Oh
use
yeah.
personally?
I mean, wish lists are the main thing. Those are definitely the gold standard. I mean, playtime, that is also very important. Playtesting, having playtest feedback, that is good. But I would say raw number of wish lists, that is definitely the most important thing. So I think I mean, nowadays making a demo is very important. So once you get to the demo part, if you did the playtesting well enough, if people are playing your demo for like 1 hour, guarantee that will get you a ton of wish lists. So at the end of the day, wish lists are the number that you want to optimize for, because wish lists then eventually lead to sales, which is the whole thing that Steam cares about. Steam just cares about making money. That's basically it. So if you're making Steam money, if you're making money, you're making Steam money, and they are going to continue promoting that. And yeah, usually wish lists lead to sales, so that is very much the main metric to go for. But yeah, then when you make a demo, of course, if you have wish lists, but then the game nobody enjoys the game, that is not going to work. Even if you have like 100K wish list, nobody likes it, it won't do very well. I mean, there was like the example of the game Cuff Bus that came out and had like 100K wish list, massively successful, pretty much guaranteed success. But then the game was not what people were expecting, was very limited. So yeah, it launched, it actually sold quite a lot, but I assume it actually had quite a lot of refunds and then basically
Mm.
died off very quickly. So yeah, wish lists are extremely important, but of course, then you actually convert.
You have
So
to deliver.
the game behind it, yeah, you have to actually deliver on the experience. Yeah.
And how would you say you go about trying to do that? So with Dinky Guardians, did you playtest? Did you have people playtesting it? I would imagine you did.
A little bit, but actually not too much. Because again,
Okay.
that one was a very compressed time frame. So I was very quickly build the game, put it up on NextFest and so on. So my playtest, I think I playtest just a very small amount before NextFest, but then I published the demo and then got quite a lot more feedback and constantly, I think I was putting out updates on every single day. So I did that. Then after that, I continued putting out more updates. So yeah, I definitely should have done more playtests before NextFest. I definitely recommend that. But yeah, in my case, I didn't do that just because I was doing on such a short time frame that there just wasn't time. I was literally literally adding features by the time that the game was coming out on Next Fest. So I didn't quite have time to do that. But yeah, I definitely do recommend that. Spend time playtesting so that when you do put out the demo, it is as solid that you as you can make it, so that you actually get more benefits from demo in Next Fest.
So this would have been 3 years ago, right? That you were doing the Next Fest.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 years.
So probably different climate also too, because I think the Next Fest numbers have like tripled since
oh
then.
yeah, that is constantly increasing.
Yeah, I think the meta for how to navigate Steam just changes every 6 months, basically. So
yes.
I think that's the one thing that I'm trying to figure out is what my plan is moving forward. I mean, I was going to ask, like, yeah, so it sounds like the next thing you make, you're planning on doing playtesting a little bit earlier. Maybe getting the demo to a more polished point before you hit the
I mean, I think the next game that I make, before all that comes what I think is the most important part nowadays, which is basically idea selection. Nowadays, I do think that is very crucial. I mean, yet another example, a game that just came out, Mecha Chameleon.
Yeah.
It's a game that was made in like 2 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Very small game, but the idea is insanely clever, very nice, very interesting. So the game sold literally millions upon millions of dollars just based on the concept alone. So I think nowadays the power of good ideas, something that actually has a nice hook that can be delivered through like a normal YouTube short, I think that is very crucial nowadays. So whenever I start working on my next game, I think I will do that. I will spend some time literally just testing like 20 different prototypes, 20 different ideas, and just making videos trying to see which one of those seems to have captivating audience, and then basically trying to double down because I do think difference between working on an idea that does have potential right from the start and something that doesn't quite, yeah, it's basically you're going to be pushing a boulder uphill as opposed to basically just going on easy mode. So I think nowadays that is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I don't know whether I'll end up doing that. I may in terms of prototyping things. I think I've got a few ideas that I want to work on next that I'm just kind of, I'm like, if I don't get this out of my head, I would drive myself insane, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think it's a really great piece of advice. And I've seen a few people try that and it seems to work. So are you thinking then prototype and then like YouTube shorts and then and like have a selection of 3 or 4? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to spend like 6 months just working on lots of different prototypes? Or are you going to spend like, how are you going to deliver them? I guess is the question there. Like, are you thinking all in one go, or do one, put it out, do one, put it out, do one, put it out?
Oh, I think do one, put it out, but of course you need multiple in order to compare them. So yeah, just basically work on a game idea, put out a bunch of shorts, try to see if they work. Then after a while, work on another idea. Like I said, these are meant to be prototypes, so not meant to be like 6 months working on it. So like literally in like 1 weekend to 1 week, just work on this one idea. Try to see, do people like this hook or not? Then on next week, work on another different idea. So with that, in like 1 month, you can make like, I don't know, 5 or 6. Then you can compare it to all of them. You can try to see, okay, this game idea, I made 4 videos for it, and the videos got on average, let's say 10K views. And on these other ones, the videos on average got like 100 views. Very clearly, this one has quite a bit more potential. So I think that is how I would do idea selection.
So just sort of viral marketing early on.
Yeah.
How?
I mean, not necessarily viral, that you don't need like millions of views, just seeing comparatively.
Like,
okay, this one's getting 10K views and this one's getting 100. That is a very clear sign, a very clear indicator.
How will you decide to draw the line?
That's true, yeah. I guess you make, I don't know, decide for yourself, like, I'm going to make 10 and then analyze the results of all those 10 and try to see that. Because, yeah, of course, you can take it to infinity. You can make like 100 and try to see which one. So, yeah, at some point, you got to draw a line in the sand. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe 10 is good. So maybe working on for like 2 months, make as many ideas as you can. And then at the end of those 2 months, analyze and see which one has potential.
So in some ways, that's kind of your research and development budget, so to speak, for the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
And in scoping and designing the scope of game, what is this going to be? Game 6? 7 for you?
I guess it would be game 10.
No, wait.
Yeah,
game
I think
10.
I've got 9
right, yeah,
games.
I'm looking. Well, yeah, your Steam page has some of your like tutorial stuff, so I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, so game 10, right? Then
I guess so.
You're building a budget for game 10. You've got 2 months pre-production.
Yeah, basically.
And then 6 months production, or like a month of prototyping and development, and then production after that.
I don't know. I think nowadays I'm good enough that in just 1 week I can build a solid enough prototype that at the end I know roughly how to translate this into a proper game. So I don't think I would need to make basically an idea prototype and then an actual prototype and then the
Okay.
actual game. I think I could just go from idea prototype to the final proper game. Yeah.
Do you prototype mechanics in separate scenes and things? Because that's something I've been doing. Is like whenever I want to, and maybe that's partly just because I'm developing a more modular system, like a modular game where I can be adding components. But I've found recently that just having playgrounds for things, so having just a vehicle controller playground in a scene, and then the vehicle, traffic vehicle, whatever. And if I was building a tycoon game, just having a sort of player builder thing, maybe a visual prototype scene. Is that something you sort of explore yourself, or do you just kind of do you just mainline the main?
No, definitely. I mean, game development is all about iteration. It's all about building things over and over again, trying to see what works, what doesn't work. So yeah, doing those kinds of test levels, like you said, depends on the game. But yeah, in most games, in most genres, you can probably come up with some kind of like test level, something where you can experiment with a bunch of stuff. And yeah, that is definitely crucial, especially if you're making something more modular. So you can try to build out this system and yeah, either make a completely separate scene or just have a scene that doesn't have like cutscenes, nothing like that. So you can just go straight into gameplay and like position all the objects for this one mechanic over here, then all the objects for this mechanic over here. And you basically just do that, trying to identify which mechanics might work. So you can then incorporate them into everything else. Yeah.
So then is that what you think you're going to do? You're going to just finish your course that you're working on now and then dive into the next thing? Is that kind of your current plan now?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just because I've got so many ideas for like educational stuff that I would like to do. So yeah, I initially at the end of last year I was thinking to myself, okay, at the second half of this year I want to get started working on a game. Yeah, we're already on the second half of this year.
I think that's what you said to me when I spoke to you last year in Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly.
You were like, yeah, I gotta do tutorials for like another year, or like half a year or so, and then I'll start working on something new. But
that was
that's
the
changed
plan.
now.
But again, things just go all over the place. So yeah, now I can't imagine starting to work on something like that. So yeah, there's still quite a lot more things on my immediate plate right now. So yeah, I don't know, maybe next year, maybe.
Is that more appealing to you because you can get videos out faster? Because that's one of the things that I realized, right? Like I can work on a video and release something within a week, and you get that little dopamine hit of a release and seeing the numbers go up and stuff. Versus a game that I think, you have to put yourself into for 6 months' time. So would you say that is the biggest challenge for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the reason why I started YouTube, is because before then I was making games, and on average my games were like 1 year. And yeah, it's fun to work on a game, to work on a project for 1 year, but it's also a bit frustrating because, at least for me, the way my brain works, I got a billion ideas for all kinds of things, all kinds of different systems, things that I would love to build. But when I'm working on a game, I got to be focused. I got to be like, okay, I got to make this game. I got to finish this, and then I can work on a different idea. So that is part of the reason why I started my YouTube channel, because I was like, okay, I can keep working on my games, do that on background, and then like once a week, I can make a different mechanic and just make a video on that mechanic. Then next week, work on a different mechanic. So part of the reason why I started was just for that, just so I can explore all the ideas that I have in my head, because I do enjoy that quite a bit. I mean, that is also part of the reason why I would probably not spend like 2 years working on a game, because yeah, again, it's almost painful to me to focus on just one thing for that amount of time. I really like building tons and tons of stuff. I mean, I've got my to-do list for like potential video topics, like, I don't know, like 300 video ideas, and it's constantly increasing as opposed to decreasing. So, so yeah, trying to imagine pausing that list for like 2 years as it continues growing and growing and growing. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds very, very difficult. So yeah, the way my brain works, yeah, definitely I want to keep producing lots of new things all the time. I definitely prefer that as opposed to something quite a bit more big.
So is it an economical argument for you then as well? Is it just sort of which one is easier to generate revenue for you? Because you don't do sponsored videos that frequently?
Very rarely, yeah. I don't know. Just usually like just the Unity asset store. So I make like, I don't know, like 5 sponsored videos in an entire year out of like 150 videos. So yeah, usually my videos are basically sponsored, quote unquote, by my own courses, my own thing. So yeah, usually that's not something that I focus on too much. So yeah, it's more like, I want to cover this, I want to cover that, and yeah, if people want to see it, that's great. Yeah.
And so then, I guess you just have that freedom, because like YouTube is somewhat unsustainable for many people, right? So and you've spoken to me about this before, that your courses, people tend to be driven towards your sort of, there's the classic like funnel of just, you have these things for your audience to spend money on and help support you, which is the way you make a living doing this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if I recall, you said that is thankfully sustaining you enough that you don't feel the need to have this big hit video game that can bring
Yeah,
in,
exactly. Yeah.
10x, 100x the numbers that you would potentially be able to see from a YouTube channel.
Yeah, thankfully the point that I've reached right now after like 10 years of doing YouTube, thankfully I've reached a point where like the educational side is, I think, quite a bit more stable. Whereas with games, yeah, games are all over the place. I mean, even the games that I've made, like difference between the top game and the lowest game is like, I don't know, like 100x, something like that. So yeah, games are very spiky, whereas the educational stuff I found to be also spiky, of course, but quite a bit more stable. So yeah, when it comes to, I don't know, like like my mental health, not having like, okay, I'm working on this game. Now all of a sudden I'm making 10 times more money. Now I'm making 1/10 the amount of money. Yeah, that can be tricky. So having a little bit more stability, that is also an argument for being more on the educational side. Yeah.
Interesting. No, yeah, I can understand that fully. Yeah. Do you think you're going to expand into other engines at any point? Like, is Godot attractive to you at all? I mean, I've dabbled in Unreal. I have no interest in. I thought about it, but like, it's just a beast and the way that seems to be going. But Godot does seem interesting. It feels to me like Blender, like when Blender was kind of coming up, and you were like, it's still a little bit undercooked. but now Blender's like, no, you got.
Oh yeah, nowadays it's great,
fantastic. Yeah. I feel like Godot is going to maybe cross that threshold at some point. Do you think you would move into a space where you're trying to maybe do both, or are you just kind of sticking purely to Unity? Right or die?
Probably not. No. I mean, one thing that I always say is that it is much more worthwhile to know one tool very, very deeply as opposed to have just very surface knowledge of like 10 different tools. So on that, I do think part of the reason why I think I'm good at teaching things to people is because I've literally been using Unity for like over 10 years. So if I now jump to Godot, I would need quite a lot of time to gather quite a lot of experience until I felt that I was confident enough to be able to teach people things. So yeah, that would basically be a pretty massive shift. I don't think I could do both at the same time. I think that would be quite tricky. So yeah, I would love to try out Godot and Unreal just basically as a one-off thing. Just spend like, I don't know, like 10, 20 hours working on it, just trying to see how does it work? What are the things that it does that are maybe better than Unity, maybe worse than Unity, trying to compare those. So I would love to do like an overview video trying to experiment that. But yeah, as to like switching more specifically, no, I don't think so until, I don't know, until Unity dies. That's basically it. So yeah.
You are ride or die.
Yeah. If that happens, then yeah, sure. I guess I will switch probably to Godot. But yeah, until that happens, yeah, I already have like 10 plus years of knowledge of like this one tool. So yeah, giving up all that knowledge, yeah, like I said, needs a very, very serious reason, like literally the software dying. Other than that, yeah, it's very tricky.
I think I feel very similar about it. I think that was where I ended up landing, especially because I experimented. Cabs was a good example to try and be like, okay, what is this like to put into Unreal? I just had and I've had experience working on Unreal games in the past, and I just had a very similar. It was just running up against. I was like, this is going to take me twice as long to do just to get back to where I was when I was already in Unity. So there's like a comfort and familiarity aspect. But I do see the appeal of Godot, especially for me. It's the language, right? Like I love C#. One of the reasons I hate Unreal is I hate C++. I hate how heavy Unreal is, especially in the C++. Like opening a project, opening the engine project, it just does not ever compile on anything I've ever ran that on.
Okay.
And so there's like no predictions or anything. Like you just like raw code. And it's supposed to have all of that stuff, but I've never managed to get it working with Unreal. Whereas in Unity, you download it, you install it, you have IntelliSense working, and it's just
nice.
But just also C++ and dealing with all that stuff. And so for me, that was one of the things for Godot is just the language aspect of it. But people say that there's C# support. However, it feels to me like the way that Unity handles C# is unique and appealing.
I mean, I quite like it. So yeah, I mean, I went to C# after making games in Flash, which was using ActionScript 3.0, which was very similar to C#. So for me, the transition was very easy. But still, I don't know. I don't remember the details nowadays, but I do remember seeing, oh, this is quite a bit better than ActionScript. So it was familiar, and I already enjoyed ActionScript 3.0, and C# was a little bit better in a bunch of use cases. So yeah, so far it's definitely my favorite language. I mean, I've written code in, I don't know, like over a dozen different languages, and yeah, C# is definitely the one that I most enjoy. So the fact that is also an important point on the game engines. Yeah, if you go with Unreal, chances are you got to use C++. I mean, if you want, you can use blueprints, but yeah,
Not for long.
C++. Yeah, again, that's the thing of them deprecating. So yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen with that, with like verse or whatever. Yeah, I guess we shall see. But yeah, so with Unreal, you go C++. With Unity, we go C Sharp, and with Godot, technically do have C Sharp support, but most of like the tutorials, the educational stuff is in their Godot script. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that is also one of the ways to choose an engine. Which language do you prefer to write in? And me, I really enjoy C Sharp, so that is also a reason to stick with Unity.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. I came from ActionScript. I was also doing Flash games. My first game, RPG Tycoon, was written in ActionScript. It was compiled in
Nice.
whatever the ActionScript like IDE was at the time. I can't remember what it's called now, but this was
I think it was Flash Develop,
Flash Builder.
maybe?
I think, oh yeah, Flash Develop or something.
Flash
Yeah,
Develop. I think
and
that was
Flash
it.
Builder
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I was using Starling, which was like a Flash for an ActionScript 3 framework.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's still around. I think people have sort of revived or like moved the ActionScript thing, and then it was built into Adobe Air, and that came with all its
Oh.
own problems. And yeah,
Oh yeah, that was a
yeah,
nightmare.
moving into Unity, I was like, wait, you can do what? And C
Yeah.
Sharp as well. Learning C Sharp, I agree that I think going from because I guess ActionScript is like a JavaScript-esque language, so going from that web kind of
Yeah.
framework of languages into C Sharp, I think is, yeah, I would have always advised that, because I think I did at one point try C++ from ActionScript land, and I was like, I'm so confused by this because there's just so many things you have to handle. So it's interesting to hear that you had almost the exact same experience as me.
Yeah.
On that note, do you miss Flash? Do you miss Flash and ActionScript? Because I miss Newgrounds. I miss like
Yes.
those small micro games that were free to play
Yes.
that you could just idle with.
Yeah, I do miss that. I do think it's a great shame. Why did Apple have to kill Flash? Why did that happen? That sucked so bad. I mean, because Flash was generally great. It was,
Yeah,
I mean, as a software, sure, it had a bunch of limitations, but that's really just web-based limitations, not necessarily specific to Flash. But it had a lot of benefits, like you literally just go to a web page and you can play literally 100 different games. That was
yeah,
awesome. And so it was awesome as a player. So when I was a kid, like going to school, and there were like some computers in school, so we'd go to like Miniclip, Newgrounds, and just play a bunch of games. That was awesome. That was cool. You don't need to install anything, just go to a browser and works great. So as a player, it was awesome. And as a developer, it was also awesome because players were used to playing these very tiny games. So you could make a game on literally just 1 week, and all of a sudden had a ton of people playing that game. And you, especially on Newgrounds, you were basically guaranteed if you upload something, you will get, I don't know, I think it was like 1,000 people basically guaranteed to play your game. So when it comes as a developer, learning, trying to get more feedback on your things, I think that was insanely valuable and so good. And yeah, it really sucks how in the years since then nothing seems to have replaced that one. So yeah, I mean, people talk about itch, but yeah, if you put something up on itch, you are not going to get 1,000 people playing your game,
absolutely.
so you will not get that
Yeah.
feedback. So sadly, nothing has replaced Flash as it was, so I really miss it.
Yeah, I miss it too. I mean, I think from an educational standpoint, for me, the way that I learn, because I would sit at lunchtime on the computers in the computer lab, and I would make little like Flash animations, right? And so
Nice. Yeah.
my gateway into programming and learning how to program was, I was like, okay, I can make a little play button at the start of my animation.
Nice.
So you just learn the basics of programming.
Yeah.
That, like, what happened? How do I take mouse input over a button and then
Yes.
make that? And then you go, okay, well, what happens if I learn how to make left or right work on the keyboard? And then that's like, oh, well, now I can move a thing. And it's just this sort of step-by-step modular learning tool. And you kind of don't have that gateway in the same way that I think Flash was magical for stuff like that. Because I think that was a shared experience for a lot of people. I think it was Flash animations into like, wait, you can program things in this?
That is literally the same thing that I learned. I mean, like I said, I started working programming with IRC scripting, which had no visuals. So when I discovered Flash, I discovered literally that thing that you are talking about. I'm like, holy crap, I can combine programming with visuals. That is awesome. So I can actually write the code that I already know roughly how to write. But now instead of just working with text, now I can actually take like an image on screen and move it left and right. That is awesome. That little combination of like visuals and code, that was so awesome. And yeah, Flash made it so easy. So yeah, that is something that, yeah, very much sad that it was destroyed, because yeah, that I think helped myself and helped quite a lot of people get started and try to see, oh, it's possible to make games. So yeah, that is, it sucks how it died, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah. It's definitely sort of an era that I think a lot of people mourn. And it's a shame for people growing up without it not to have that like access. I
Yeah.
mean, it's now easier than ever, I think, to learn, and I think that thankfully with engines like Unity
Yeah,
and
it
Godot
is. Yeah.
and Unreal, but I do think the barrier to entry is a lot higher in
Yeah.
terms of getting started, right? Because
Yes.
yeah, with Flash it was so easy,
Oh
and
yeah.
I think that's an interesting challenge. So, okay, well, okay, I have one more sort of game development question for you, and I think it's like I like digging into this because it's always a learning moment. And so I'd say to you, out of everything you've worked on, and specifically maybe your games and your YouTube video, maybe you have a story for both. What is something that you've struggled with on a design or implementation standpoint? You spoke a little bit about this earlier, but maybe in a more recent example that you'd say is sort of a big um, like obstacle that you had to overcome, or a design mistake maybe that you feel like you've made that you would maybe want to
I mean,
correct.
the hardest part is since I make educational content, so the hardest part is when I try to cover something that is like brand new, something that Unity just put out, and there's basically no educational content out there. So that is always the toughest part. So like the most recent thing was probably when they started talking about dots, and there was like no educational content, nothing on it. So trying to learn how dots works just by reading documentation, just by looking at the samples, that is definitely very, very difficult. But thankfully, that is also something that is a skill that you gain with over time. So yeah, if I was to try learning how dots work just based on documentation samples like 10 years ago, I don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would have managed to learn. Whereas now that I have quite a bit more experience, even though that is quite difficult and took me quite a lot of time to reorganize things in my head, especially because dots, you need to think in a different way. Because that, yeah, reading documentation, going through the samples, that was quite tricky. But yeah, thankfully nowadays I'm already pretty good at learning new things. So even though it is difficult, yeah, basically just keep pushing through it, keep learning just a tiny bit, and over time, yeah, you eventually gain quite a bit of knowledge. So that is probably the most recent thing, how it was something that is quite a bit more unique. Because when it comes to like general things, thankfully nowadays I'm already good enough and confident enough in my own abilities that I know any game idea that I think of, I'm pretty sure I can implement. So yeah, I might not know instantly what to build, but I know okay, I can probably find the answer. I can Google, I can figure stuff out. So nowadays, thankfully, I've already reached that ability, I guess, of anything I can imagine. I'm confident that I can build it. So when it comes to like limitations of things, thankfully, not too much. Yeah, I guess again that speaks to the power of experience. So that is why I
Yeah.
constantly tell people make more things, write more things, because over time, yeah, you develop this skill where you are suddenly able to build basically anything you can imagine, which is a very great thing to have. Yeah.
So you'd say the Dinky Guardians went like as smoothly as planned, or did you find any sort of tipping points for that?
I mean, there were definitely challenges, of course. I mean, every single game has challenges, but yeah, I think it went pretty smoothly. I mean, I think the biggest challenge was so basically on the gardens you are populating one planet, but then you've got multiple planets, and each of those planets I intentionally wanted so that you can actually colonize those, and you can set up orders on those. So like you got on this planet, you've got a Dinky Garden that is basically the Dinky is mining for some stone, and then another Dinky is basically carrying some stone. So I want that to work even when I go onto this other planet. So when I'm on this other planet, that logic, that simulation is meant to still be running exactly as intended. But of course, you can't run it 100%. That would not work. You can't keep, I don't know, like 500 dinkies on 7 separate planets in memory at all times. That doesn't really work. The game would not run at all. So that was probably the biggest challenge, trying to figure out how can I simulate that in a way that literally does work. So yeah, that took quite a lot of iteration, quite a lot of thinking what were the various ways, and eventually I come up with basically just using just raw C# objects. So they had no visuals, no animations, nothing whatsoever, just a vector 3 just moving stuff around, and just some timers as if it was making some kind of animation, but nothing visual. Then of course that was not enough, so then I also had to like limit the scale of that simulation, so run it only like 10 times per second as opposed to 6 times per second. So yeah, that was a very interesting like optimization challenge. How do I make all of that work? So yeah, that was very tricky. But again, thankfully, I already have quite a lot of experience. So even though that was difficult, over time, just going at bit by bit until eventually the system works pretty well, exactly as I wanted.
Yeah, that's a pretty common like optimization trick. I mean, I just did a
Yeah.
video on like culling physics and making sure that because there's no point even like trying to consider physics objects that you're nowhere near, right?
Yes.
Like, and
Oh,
Unity
yeah.
Engine does handle this stuff, but it's just like just turn it all off. You don't need it
Yeah.
anywhere near what you're doing. And yeah, so I think that's one of the things that comes with that back end of game development where you're just like, okay, well, this needs to run smoothly, and you're just
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
optimize. You're just trying to find the wins where you can get them. And the thing I find most fascinating about optimizing is just how aggressive some of the jumps can be from like
Oh yeah,
like a 15 FPS to like
yes.
20 FPS, but then trying to get those last, like when you're especially when you're up at like, if you're trying to run at 60 and you're currently at
Yeah.
55, you have to do a ton of optimization
Oh
to get
yeah.
those extra 5 frames, right? But if you're at 20 and you want to get to 30, you can do a lot less optimization
Yeah,
and get
yeah.
those extra 10 frames. That is a nightmare.
It is, but honestly, that's one of the parts that I most enjoy. Yeah, optimization for some reason for me, I don't know, the way my brain is wired, I really enjoy seeing numbers go up. So yeah, I mean that's also it's also funny. I remember back when I was playing World of Warcraft, when I was playing that with my games with my friends, and I remember for them they really hated the grind. They back then it was basically going up to level 60, and what they enjoyed was basically being at level 60, doing the heroics, the raids, all those things. So for them, basically that was punishment until reaching level 60, and that's when the game started. Whereas for me, it was literally the opposite. For me, I really enjoyed going up level, seeing level up, constantly going over time. And as soon as I hit 60, all of a sudden the game lost its interest to me. So yeah, I think for some reason my brain's very much wired towards trying to see numbers go up.
Yeah,
So
you're
for
the
me,
numbers go up guy.
optimization,
Right,
yeah.
right.
For me, optimization is great. Just profiling, trying to see, okay, this function is running in like 2 milliseconds. Let's get it down to like 1.8, 1.5, 1. And yeah, I really enjoy that. So yeah, it can be very frustrating when you're like, I tried everything and I still got to come up with like 10 FPS. I don't know how. It can be very frustrating, but that's definitely a challenge that I always really enjoy.
Well, okay. I think we're sort of close to wrapping up here, man. Is there anything like what are you working on now? I think you said you're working on your like
Yeah, my practice lab. Yeah,
practice
that
lab
is
course. Do
probably
you
the
want to just
thing.
talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit more, and then we can maybe wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's something that I started like, it's been like 3 months now. So it's actually been quite a while. And it's actually an idea that I've had in my head for literally like, I don't know, like 5 years, something that I've really wanted to make, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about a while ago. How part of the reason why I started my channel was because I want to experiment creating different things every single week as opposed to being married to one idea for 1 year. And this is kind of it. I always thought, okay, why don't I make some kind of program where I come up with like mechanics and you have to implement all sorts of mechanics, and basically, I give the starting project files, and you have to implement those. And that is basically what I finally was able to do. So yeah, it basically works like that. I come up with the starting project files. So like the current one is the worker task system, which is meant to be like a tycoon game where we've got like workers and they're meant to do tasks. Like this one cleans up the floor, this one carries some boxes from here to here. So that is like a standard thing in some kind of tycoon game. So I basically prepare the starting scene, which has a worker, and the worker can basically move around. And it's basically up to you to take that starting scene and implement those objectives. Try to make it, okay, there's some dirt here. The worker should go up there, clean up the dirt, should go to this box and move it around. So yeah, it's something that it goes back to basically my thing of trying to experiment new things. And with this, I basically have an excuse to come up with a new mechanic challenge every 2 weeks. So that has been really nice for me personally to come up with those. I mean, there's a billion things you can do. I mean, when I first started this, I came up with a list of like what were the mechanics that I could make this just to know, okay, is this something that I can do consistently, or is this something that I just have like 10 ideas and that's it? And no, as soon as I started thinking about there's like a billion different ideas of mechanics in every sort of game that you can build. Yeah. Game mechanics are essentially infinite. There's
Right.
no limitation on that. So yeah, I've really been enjoying making that. So yeah, every 2 weeks come up with a new one. And then of course, trying to see people how they actually solve that one. That has also been really interesting, trying to see how people solve these challenges in so many different ways. Like one of those was like a making a CCTV camera system. So the starting project files just had like one area, like a warehouse, and had a character basically walking around. And the goal was basically for the student to implement some kind of CCTV camera system. So they had to place some cameras, and those cameras had to basically see something, and the player had to be able to see all various cameras at once and be able to click through those cameras on one place to the other. And yeah, some people did it very straightforward, just using like a render texture, and that's it, just one here, one here, one here. But there was some people that started using like some post processing, making it real local, like CCV. Others had like some very cameras controls, adding like zoom with like different text on the screen and so on. So yeah, it's also been really nice trying to see how different people starting from the same challenge, the same project files, and they all achieve those in completely different ways, both in terms of visual output as well as in terms of the code that they define, those kinds of things. So yeah, it's been really nice for me to make all these challenges, and really nice to see how different people solve them in various ways. So yeah, that has been a really nice part of my past few months.
It sounds like really you're kind of just designing little micro game jams for people.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it is. It's very limited because I intentionally don't want this program to, like, I don't know, take an entire week of someone. I want it to be something that people can combine with like their own projects and something like that. So it's meant to be very small, but yeah, it's essentially kind of like instead of being a game jam, it's like a game mechanic jam. You just make one mechanic and that's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how you're taking, you said you're taking kind of your love for making games, but just applying it into educational, like
Yeah.
scope related games. Like you are still designing games, just in a
Yeah.
in a in a puzzle. Like you say, you're calling them challenges. To me, that is still an aspect of game design, right? Like you're creating these.
Oh yeah.
You're just making entertainment games ultimately, right? Like
Yeah,
to some
yeah,
degree.
it's definitely different, but yeah, I do have to come up with like a list of what are the objectives that they have to do. So yeah, I do have to think a little bit about game design. How do I start from easy challenges, easy objectives to more hard objectives? So yeah, it does require a little bit of a design brain. Then yeah, building the starting scene, making sure that it actually works, because the entire purpose is not to be like some throwaway thing. It's meant to be for people to learn something from these mini micro mechanics that they can then apply to their own actual games. So yeah, it has to be something that is built decently and not something throwaway. So yeah, I mean, like I was saying, one of the most powerful things is experience. So my goal with this program is to help people gain that experience. You just go every 2 weeks, just make a challenge, and if you do that consistently over time, I guarantee you will gain quite a lot of experience that you can then apply to your own games.
Well, that's great, man. It sounds like it's working really well,
Yeah.
and so you're just going to be doing that now for then the next however
I don't know,
long
forever.
it takes?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not
Sounds
very
like you
good
can
at
just do this forever.
Yeah, in terms of content, I can definitely do. So yeah, let's see if I can do it. But yeah, so far, yeah, every 2 weeks making one. So I'm currently up to challenge number 7, and I started on 0. So technically, there have been 8 challenges already. So yeah, so far it's going well. Like I said, in terms of ideas, there's no no end in sight. So yeah, I will continue doing this as far as I can.
If they start now, can they have access to
See
all
all
of
the
them?
challenges. Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's just going to continually grow then over
Yeah, exactly.
time.
Yeah, it's a community, so there's like a place for people to submit their solutions. So that part, the active community part, that one is limited to the last challenge. But all the previous ones, they still exist in the library. So yeah, someone can join right now and go do challenge number 0 just by themselves, just learn. Of course, they can see the solution, because obviously every single challenge has the starting challenge where I give you the starting project files, and then I record the video, basically just a standard tutorial where I explain how I solved this challenge. So yeah, all of those exist forever. So yeah, it's definitely possible for someone to join right now and just binge through all the challenges, or wait 1 year and binge through, I guess, 25 challenges. Yeah, I guess that is possible.
Well, that's great. It sounds like it's going really well. So yeah. So where can people go to? Do you have a URL that's easy to get to for that, or?
Usually the one that I use is cmonkey.co/practice lab. That is the one. But if you just search for Game Dev Practice Lab, yeah, it will probably show up on Google. And I've made some videos on my channel. So yeah, just Game Dev Practice Lab and it will show up.
Great. Cool. Well, I wish you the best of it. And it sounds like it's going really well for you. So it's always great to chat to you. And thank you
too, Matt. Yeah.
Thanks for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for inviting me. I mean, it's nice to be here in the beginning of this new adventure. So yeah,
thank you.
I hope this goes very well for you. Nice.
Thanks so much, man. I'll see you again next time. Bye.
Yeah, of course. Bye, Matt. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of About Game Dev. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, be sure to follow the podcast if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, or subscribe here on YouTube so you don't miss future episodes. And if you'd like to support the show, you can join the Patreon, where you'll get early access to every episode completely ad-free, along with all the other perks from my main channel. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.